Good evening. Welcome to the Land Use, Landmarks, and Planning Committee meeting of CB11. My name is Jason Villanueva, and I'm the chair of the committee. This meeting is being called to order at 8:35. Tonight, we are joined by Andrew Muscane, the staff liaison to our committee. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until the end of the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. To raise your hand through Zoom, click the participants icon and you will find the raise hand function there. If you have technical difficulty, click the chat icon and relay your difficulty to the staff. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. The chat should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record when recognized. Please keep your questions and comments brief and on topic to the discussions. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. We will now take the attendance by roll call.
Committee members, when I call your name, please answer present. Jessica Elliott. Nelson Rama.
Present.
Beverly Pabon is excused. Derek Stampone.
Present.
Betty Torres.
Present.
Jason Villanueva.
Present.
Candy Vivas Vasquez. Nye Whitaker.
Present.
We have more.
Excellent. All right, moving on to the adoption of the agenda. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and was posted online. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Committee members, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hands to be recognized. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Adoption of the meeting minutes. The minutes from our last meeting were distributed to committee members ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes from that meeting. Committee members, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand to be recognized. Seeing no objection, the minutes from the last meeting are adopted. The minutes of tonight's meeting are being taken by Derek. Announcements.
The following affordable housing plan applications have been submitted to the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, HPD. 202 East 120th Street. Proposed development will consist of 194 residential units, 48 of which will be designated as affordable at 40, 60, and 130% of AMI, pursuant to the mandatory inclusionary housing program. Number 247 East 117th Street. The project will consist of 60 residential units, 15 of which will be designated as affordable at 60% of AMI, pursuant to mandatory inclusionary housing. The affordable housing plan applications and supporting materials are available on CB11's land use and landmarks database on our website. That's it.
Excellent. Presentations and discussions. Is there any other announcements from the committee? Excellent. We'll move on to presentations and discussions. The update on the B parcel of the East 125th Street Development Project. Madison Hernandez and Lauren Wolf, New York City Economic Development Corporation. Which was yours.
Amazing. I do want to also introduce two of my colleagues who are here in person. Actually, I'll introduce.
I'm Gabe Seidel. It's nice to meet you all. I'm a colleague of Lauren Wolf. I work on the real estate team.
Hi, I'm Rachel Aronson. I'm also at EDC on the neighborhood strategies team. I met some of you when we were here to present on the Conveyor Grant project in the last year.
And my name is Madison Hernandez. I'm with the Government and Community Relations team at cover Upper Manhattan and the Bronx. And so we have a few of our colleagues on the Zoom. We have Lauren Wolf joining us from our real estate transactions services team as well. And I'm sure many of you know Lauren with a lot of the institutional knowledge when it comes to these Harlem projects here at community. And so now that we have, is it okay if we sit here? Do you want us to stand? Amazing. I know that we've discussed a lot of East Harlem projects with this body before, but today we're specifically focusing on the B East parcel, a part of the larger 125th Street on 2nd Avenue, that large piece of land where we have a number of projects between the city. But today focusing on B East and looking forward to having further communications with this board in the coming months on the other parcels of land a part of that area. And so just to get started, we can go to the next slide. The agenda for today, we're focusing on kind of loosely the project background here, just to provide some historical context for those who may not be familiar, even though I'm sure a lot of you have a far more institutional knowledge than we do here. And then getting into the specifically what the B East project vision is, going over timeline and answering any questions that you may have related to the B East parcel. So I'm gonna hand it over to my colleague Rachel, and she's gonna go over the background.
Okay, next one. Great, all right, so just to start a little bit of broader history here and zooming out a bit, the MEC campus was a sort of 2008 era plan. MEC stood for Media, Entertainment, Culture campus. And it's a series of parcels in this neighborhood located between 2nd and 3rd Avenue, mostly between 125th and 127th, 127th, one just south of 125th as well. This was a 2008 plan, and in the years since, many of these sites have been delivered. Those are shaded in yellow. You can see that B West, parcel C, those are both housing projects, and then the Proton Center, which is that yellow one furthest to the north, that's the cancer treatment healthcare facility. HPD is actively working on that pink site, that's upcoming B Center, and so really what we've been thinking about is what to do with the remaining been vacant now for nearly 20 years. So like Madison said, we're really here today to talk only about the East, but want to sort of ground this in the broader context of the campus as well. And then the next slide. And then before I hand it over to Gabe, who's going to talk more specifically about the East, wanting to just really zoom out and think about sort of the neighborhood as a whole and really highlight a lot of the active projects that are happening specifically in this corner of East Harlem. A lot of these are EDC projects. I'm sure you are all very familiar with them, but just to highlight that the MEC campus is extraordinarily close to a home and burial ground site, so thinking about those relationships. And then also thinking about all of the work that's happening with the greenways and new open space. So a lot of EDC projects in this area, also underscoring the non-EDC project here that's highlighted on the map, which is the 2nd Avenue subway extension. So just highlighting all of this of like the different pieces and thinking about how all of these projects are speaking together and thinking about all these sort of different uses that are coming online all within, really a close radius to each other. And that's something we're thinking about quite a bit on our end and think it's an important part to sort of highlight as we talk about the specific site. Great.
Great, thank you, Rachel. So, yeah, great.
I'm gonna just say next slide.
Next slide.
Oh, okay.
If you need to-
Get a really live, little bot over here.
Okay, so next slide. So, great. So this is B East. Pretty excited about this site. It's a relatively small site relative to the other sites within the MEC complex, but an opportunity in the near term to bring some new housing online. So from the conception of this project, this has always been thought about as a mixed income housing development. So the good news with that is that as of right, we have all of the entitlements, the ability to deliver a 140 unit project. So we are going out with an RFP in mid-May, we think, to solicit development proposals for this site. We are targeting the full 140 units on this site. We are asking developers to comply with the minimum, with 45X at a minimum, and propose above that additional affordability. So we'll get into some of the, in the next slides, how EDC thinks about using our land value to push affordability beyond what's required under 45X, that statute. So that's the goal. Essentially, we want 140 units, maximize development envelope, as much affordability as we can get, and an active ground floor to go with that. So next slide. This is kind of an explainer of how we think about using the land value that's on the site, which has some features to it that we'll explain a little bit further, to increase the affordability that we can generate on sites that the city owns without tapping into HPD. So any sort of like a private development that think about your average, your standard kind of 45X project, that would have, because of the market rate units in there, would have some land value that would be generated because from the market rate units. Being the city or EDC, we have the opportunity to put that money back into the project, take a lower or nominal fee for the land and say to developers, we want you to maximize affordability. So that is essentially what we call internal subsidy of affordability. So we can get more affordability in a project than we would otherwise see without having to tap additional city resources. And so we go to the next slide. The benefits to that, one, it's really the key benefit here is faster delivery. HPD financing, I should say that on this site, or in this assemblage, what's called 1 East Harlem now, that is 80% affordable. That has HPD financing in it. HPD is working on 100% affordable for the center. That's about 500 units. So there are a lot of affordable units being delivered as part of the MEC assemblage. And this is an opportunity to finish out the B block, that southern block on 125th Street, with additional housing and deliver that much faster. HPD financing and it's pretty oversubscribed. There's a long wait list. There's benefits to that, like projects that do get HPD financing, it's very competitive, but it means that new projects coming in are at the back of the list. And there's wait time associated with that. We see on B Center. So by doing a project that doesn't rely on HPD financing, cross-subsidy projects use traditional financing, there's no wait list. You can do a project much faster and deliver a lot of the benefits of affordable housing. There's still HPD regulation on the affordable units. They're permanently affordable without some of the delays and extra complexity that comes with the HPD financing pipeline. Already got into the no external subsidy here. Essentially, we're delivering this project faster because we're going this process. So next slide. So these are some of the trade-offs we wanted to preview with you and considering the responses that we could get back from this project. So we already talked about 45X. We're trying to maximize affordability there. Baseline 45X for this neighborhood is 80% AMI, 25% affordable at 80% AMI. We're trying to get more affordability on top of that. 45X establishes a minimum size of units, so no more than 25% of the units, I think, in the studio.
Somebody have to speak a little louder, so I'm just trying to move.
Okay, I'll try to project. So because we're asking developers to maximize the zoning envelope and we are limited to 140 units, that lends itself to bigger units. But as we'll get into the next slide, so one of the goals is to see family size units. We know that's a priority of this board and a priority of the council member. But as we'll see in the next slide, there's trade-off in the more large units you have, the fewer affordable units as an overall percentage of the project can support.
Right. So
that's a trade-off that will have to be considered. And so we go to the next slide is kind of an illustration of that. 45X allows 3 income brackets, none higher than 100% of AMI. So illustratively, with this, these are all evenly broken out. And I realize that this might not represent everyone's personal view of what is affordable, but this is what HPD is actually set by the federal government. So just point out that studio, say 80% of AMI studio, that rents for $2,300 a month. A 2-bedroom, which is twice the size of the studio, twice the cost of the studio, rents for not twice the rent. So that is kind of illustrative of how, internal subsidy goes farther with smaller units, not necessarily better, but it's a trade-off when considering, the distribution of units here. So something we wanted to cover. Next slide. And this is our projected timeline. So like I said, we're gonna release this RFP in the middle of May. That RFP will be out for 90 days. We expect responses end of the summer. Middle of next year, we'll then negotiate with developers and select the developer middle of next year. That would start design. The benefit here, because we're doing this as of right, we're asking developers to present as of right proposals. We don't have to go through additional entitlements. We can go straight into design and construction thereafter. So pretty streamlined pathway. As these things go, that in our line of work, nothing seems to move fast, but we think that it's feasible to have a project open sometime in 2031.
And so that's the end of the presentation. And so as Gabe has mentioned, as Rachel has mentioned, there's been a lot of development overall happening within the East Harlem area. And we're really excited and activated about activating these sites, especially since a lot of these parcels have remained vacant for a long time. And trying to deploy the resources that we have to not only deploy 485X, but allow for deeper affordability by leveraging land value here. And also considering how do we support East Harlem families, as we understand that a lot of the housing that has come to East Harlem has really been focusing on studios and on bedrooms. But obviously East Harlem, as you all know very well, there are a lot of families that are looking at 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms as well. And so overall, trying to deliver a fast project that prioritizes affordability, given the model that we're deploying here, is our goal. And so we're interested in any questions you may have, any feedback you may have, but the overall target is to release an RFP by mid-May, but wanting to come to this body first before that goes on. And also to note in the timeline as well, as we select a developer and go through the major milestones between design and construction, and we will be coming back to this body to provide regular updates to ensure that you guys are brought on along this process, as well as we further the other proposals for the other parcels of the sites, which we will, as I mentioned at the top, come back.
Excellent. Thank you for your presentation. Committee members, do we have any questions? Anyone online?
George has a question.
Vinny, then George.
Thank you guys for that presentation, very informative. Different from what we've seen in the past, right? As a city property gets dispositioned and convened to private developers through similar process, there was always the ULIP action, right, that's required, right? Which I guess it kind of makes things even take longer, right, for a lot of different reasons. This obviously is getting a little bit more streamlined, right? So concerns obviously for the community, right? 25% permanent affordability that you heard. You guys, you mentioned one question I would have for you guys. Is that gonna be in RFP as a straight up requirement, or is that then negotiable, right? You can just lend yourself to provide some additional information on that. And then also, as this is public land that's being dispositioned, I think it didn't happen on parcel B, the first parcel that was developed. Would this be requiring any type of prevailing wage requirements for the construction of the project, right? A lot of these projects go on as in terms of the development, prevailing wage, non-union, and then there's a host and slew of issues with that in terms of immigrant workforces being exploited, underpaid workers and wages. I'm sure you guys understand all of that. So if you could talk to us a little bit about that. And I don't think so, we can speak on it, but I know there was points of agreement that was attached to some of the other parcels. Are those points of agreements attached to this? And if that's the case, where is and whatever happened to the local investment fund? That was a commitment given to this community regarding these developments, which has already been, well moved in terms of phases. Why is that phase or that commitment been, like, just kicked to the can to some other point, but yet no point, with no clarity? You can just share some, sorry for the, but I probably won't get too many other opportunities, so if you can just share some information on that.
Yeah, so first question, is the affordability a requirement or is it negotiable?
Right.
Second question, will there be wage requirements on this project? Also as a requirement, negotiable. And third question, what's happening with the local investment fund and the POA?
Correct.
So for the affordability, the 45X as a minimum requirement that is a minimum requirement. That part is not negotiable. So
What?
we,
Oh, for the forbidden,
yes.
Got it.
So at least 25% affordable at 80% AMI is requirement.
permanent.
Permanent.
Mhm.
We want to use what's negotiable is the over and above. So we want to use our negotiating leverage
Mhm.
to push that over and above as far as we can get.
Okay, got it.
On the wage requirements,
Mhm.
also required will be 45X requires a minimum $40 an hour for all workers on site. That would be a requirement.
That includes all the benefits in it, so that's not prevailing wage, so prevailing wage doesn't apply.
That's prevailing wage is not applicable to
Got
affordable housing projects.
Okay.
And on the local investment fund, Lauren, can I tell, there is a POA. We are not amending the POA with respect to this project. This project has to comply with the POA. A lot of the commitments of the POA have been delivered on the center and the west, one East Harlem. Lauren, can I tap you to speak to the local investment fund and where that sits?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And sorry that I can't be there in person, and also sorry that I can't figure out video on my phone. My phone video actually does not work at all. I need to get a new phone. So in terms of the local investment fund, yeah, we are, all that has been funded to date is 250,000. We haven't made a determination to do any funding for the local investment fund as part of B East. But yeah, it's not as though we intend to comply with the POA for B Center, the HPD project. There's, I think, 15,000 of cultural and 15,000 of local retail plan for part of that project. So it's not, we are looking to operate under the regime of the POA. But we haven't made a decision to have any, we can't say here today that there's money that's going to go into the local investment fund as part of the B East closing. But in general, we're trying to comply with the local investment fund. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, pretty much pretty much the same as what we've been getting. Thank you.
Jessica, then George.
Sorry for being late and thank you for your presentation. Can you just repeat how many total units there would be, or is that just in flux with the conversation?
So it's 140.
140.
Yeah, that's written into the UDAP, so.
Great. And then the real question is, you mentioned no ULURP and no HPD subsidies means 5 years shorter. I understand the ULURP complexities, but from an HPD subsidy side, can you just give me one basic example of what HPD subsidy could be used for a project like this and what the timeline increase would be? Because I just don't understand why that would cause it to be longer.
We hear between a 5 and 10 year wait list to get into HPD financing into the pipeline for 100% affordable projects. And so not having to go through that pathway to receive financing because that's so competitive for other projects, allows this project to move faster to get financing sooner. Because it's not subject to the same,
And if I could sorry about that, Gabe. B Center, where we're looking to have that, B Center has been working on closing since 2019, since shortly after the B West closed, and they still haven't closed. I think it's a really good, they're the first one that goes next. And you know, part of the delay in that is just the delays that happen with all HPD projects.
I just wonder if like globally, like I understand there's like you know, we can get more people into housing sooner, but what are we losing by not, you know, reaching for these subsidies when we have the opportunities for, you know, 100%, you know, mandatory inclusionary housing that might take 5 more years or what have you. There've been like, I guess there's been, that's why we're having this conversation, but.
Yeah, I think B Center is the best example of that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Could I add one more point? You know, the site, the project back in 2008, you know, the original project, which I understand this isn't the original project, but you know, that project called for 20% market rate housing. And you know, there were on B West, what was it, like 107 market rate units. So it's also totally understanding that there's always a need for affordable units, but it is in keeping with kind of the overall you know, project vision, I guess, that there be market rate units as part of the project. And this is really the spot. This is the only spot that they would really be, because, you know, B Center is 100% affordable.
Thank you. George?
I think
sorry,
Nye
George.
has her hand raised.
I'm sorry,
George,
Nye, then George.
it's okay,
Just so
actually,
the public understands, committee members go, then public, then us staff. Go ahead, Nye.
thank you. As someone who lives over in this space, I have just 3 quick questions. One is just about plans for construction and timing, and its impact on the buildings that are here, and the community that's here. Secondly, I didn't really understand Lauren's response. And so if Lauren could try to be a little bit more concrete, in the response, because I do feel kind of the same way Vinny does, which is we seem to miss the boat every time, on, you know, getting what's promised to this particular community. And the third is just about kind of points of agreement and items that are promised, that are given for a short period of time and then seem to go away. And so some of that might overlap with housing, but I can tell you there's a lot of things that are promised. These new buildings are built, fast construction. There's been issues in this building on the property from day one, because, you know, I think corners are being cut to expedite the process. And I'm just very, very concerned that we're going to repeat some negatives as we move these other projects forward, especially now that the zoning and land use rules have changed. So super, super, super concerned about the future developments, and just want to encourage this committee to really go to bat strongly on our points of agreements, and to make sure that every avenue possible is being used to protect the tenants that are in the building that's on this lot, but also all the other tenants that'll be coming in the future. And so I'm just super concerned. And I also support Jessica that, you know, even if it means more time and there's additional benefits that we can get for our community, we should be trying to go that route. Thank you, Chair. And super excited to hear what George James has to say.
I guess,
You're right, George.
oh, did you want us to respond
Respond,
or?
Lauren, I'd like to respond. She called you out.
Yes, let me make myself more clear. We are intending to meet the points of agreement, and we could, you know, I think it would make sense to maybe go through at some point in time with the community board, like all the different points of agreement obligations and what's been met. Don't want to give people the impression that we're abandoning it. There's a lot that has been met to date. You know, over half the site hasn't been delivered. And so, you know, some of the obligations are in these future phases, and some of them, like half of the affordable housing that was part of it, you know, has been met between parcel C and B West. So yes, didn't want to leave you with the impression that we were looking to, you know, not try to comply with the points of agreement.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to clarify, if you would give me just a moment of courtesy, Chair, which is, it would have been helpful to come to this meeting with a report on where we are with the points of agreement, what's been covered in the section. I live in 1 East Harlem, and this is why I'm saying this. What's been covered and attained through the points of agreement for the section that has been developed, what's still on the table for the remaining sections as they develop, and how will we get to 100% completion or compliance on what's been asked for the community. This is a huge parcel of land. As I said, this building has a lot of issues. I live here and I hear about them and see them every day. As people are moving out of the affordable units, some are being converted. Amenities that were promised were free and given and are now being charged at very high rates. And so there's a lot of unrest about this particular parcel. And again, I just want to make sure that we use this as an opportunity to learn what mistakes not to make as we move forward, and also that this committee can build upon what hasn't been delivered to make sure that it is delivered and to make greater needs in the future developments. Thank you, Chair.
If I may respond just to piggyback off of Lauren's response, as well as making the commitment to come back to this body to discuss more thoroughly about POA. As I mentioned at the top, we do have intention and firm plans to come back to discuss the remaining parcels, which will be able to color better the POA and have us talk more freely alongside our city agency partners. So want to address that part as well. And Naya, you had mentioned at the very top about construction timelines and impacts on, the residents and small businesses in the area. And I think as part of the upcoming milestones, as we select a developer, as we go through design, go through construction, that's where that transparency and that communication about when things are going to commence and when things are ending will be really critical. And we love to hear from you all about how we can be most communicative as we commence those phases of the project should it proceed. And so I just wanted to make that clear as well and address that part of your comment as well.
Thank you. Just because the building already has structural issues, so new construction is going to be, very cautiously perceived by the current residents.
Yeah, understood.
Thank you. Let's move on. Who else has their hands up? I see you, Nosa. I don't see the other person.
George and then.
And Adem. Okay. Nosa, Adem, then George. Then we're gonna move on.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say a quick comment, just to piggyback off of what Naya has said and what Vinny has said. Considering that you've come here with this, while not fully fleshed out, but pretty much fleshed out, at least in the ideas. And the fact that you mentioned that a potential RFP may be released in May, did I get that wrong? And then based on what you're saying about coming back to talk about the points of agreement where we have maybe missed the boat or where we are, it just seems like there's a disconnect in terms of when we would hear from you regarding the points of agreement that may color that conversation would then may color the conversation about the RFP and our expectations of what initially that parcel was supposed to look like or what the thoughts were regarding the cultural pieces and all that. So I'm not quite sure how our feedback right today could really help, while we may bring up ideas and thoughts of initial. The fact that we may not be fully informed and we have to do our own homework. So it shouldn't be on you, right? Because I fully intend to do my own homework. But if we're gonna have a discussion later on the points of agreement, but something may be coming out in a matter of weeks, and that discussion happens afterward, I'm not quite sure how it can color in the best way. And that was just my comment.
So can I respond to that?
Absolutely.
So it's welcome feedback that we should come with an accounting of the points of agreement. That's completely fair, and we can do that at the next time we come to this board, we can bring that accounting. We just want to reiterate that we're not planning to change, or we're committed to delivering on the points of agreement for B East. There's going to be retail in the RFP. There's going to be 15,000 square feet of cultural space in B Center. So the points of agreement as it stands today is informing the projects that are being delivered that we're here to talk about. So there's no desire on our part to change that, and we can next time we come show that. That's as well.
Can I follow up the other question on this point before we go to the next person? For your points of agreement, are you incorporating it in the RFP with the developers?
Yes.
Okay, I think that answers that legally. Adem and then George.
Yeah, I just want to quickly say, to piggyback on what Nye said, when revisiting what commitments may not have been followed through on or been held up with what's already been done, beyond just looking at that as lessons learned moving forward, there should also be, if that is the case, held accountable to make that right with what's already been done. And I think that, not just with this, we've talked about revisiting pretty much every past project that's come here to see what commitments were made and made sure they were followed through on. So just because they haven't been up to now, if that is the case, beyond making sure it doesn't happen with future projects, getting things to be where they were supposed to be in the first place. So that's all I really wanted to say to that.
Thank you, Chair. George.
Yes, just a couple of comments. The first is just make certain that you all are aware that there is an active urban renewal plan on the site. It expired and then it got renewed in 2020, and it has bulk controls. And I saw some nodding heads, so good. The second thing is, I raised my hand to talk about the points of agreement, and I think you've covered it. You're going to come back and talk about it. Now, for the committee members, 80% of the units in MEC are supposed to be income restricted. Total on an average, right? 80% total on average. And so I was surprised when you started talking about this building being, following 485X and then maybe a little extra. But if you have 100% in the middle, the numbers might work out. But I think coming back and, going through the points of agreement and showing how EDC and the city is going to meet those commitments that have been previously made. I think that's you said that's what you're going to do, and I think that's what you need to do. And it's possible that this program would work, but it means that you have to balance it out with with 100% affordable elsewhere. That's it.
Thank you, George. Any rebuttal?
I just have a question to that, Chair.
Just for 1 second. No? Okay, Vinny?
George, can you elaborate a little bit more? What do you mean when you say 80% of these units are total are required to be restricted?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the points of agreement right now. It says the city seeks to maximize the number of affordable income targeted housing units to be built on the project site. The city agrees that at minimum, 80% of the units constructed within the project will be, that it goes on with the breakdowns, but income restricted. So at least 80% will be income restricted. And that's of the entire thing, right? So you could have it vary by building, right? It's not 80% of each of the buildings will be like that. You can have 100% and then balanced out with less than 80%. But it says 80% of the units will be income restricted.
Thank you, George.
Could I just add a follow-up comment? That's what I was trying to say, perhaps inexpertly, between C, B West, B Center will be at more than 80% income restricted, according to the AMIs outlined in the POA. If we did just 485X and no additional affordability, even that would be more than 80%, but we're going to do more than the 485X required affordability. So we are very much above 80% income restricted in accordance with the POA AMIs. It's just that because B Center is 100% affordable and, taking a long time to get all the financing lined up and whatnot, a lot of those additional units live in B Center.
Thank you for that clarification, Owen.
Councilmember Encarnacion.
Hello, everyone. And good evening. And I'm not on camera because I don't have that functionality on given to me, but on this Zoom. But I this process essentially, and I think somebody talked about like the ULURP, I think it was Vinny that mentioned, oh, now I'm joining as a panelist, hold on.
Let us upgrade you. Hey,
Hey, good, okay, I'm here. So as I was mentioning, the whole ULURP process. So being taken out of that as the council member, in this particular project, you know, the onus really falls on EDC in this particular situation to fight for the things that, for example, I would have fought for during the ULURP process, right? And so I think that it's very important to take back, you know, the needs of the community, what everybody's been saying, and I was enjoying that it was being targeted at you and not me in this moment, right? Because this is what we do when we have the ULURP, right? We are in charge of making sure that we get the most affordability, the needs in terms of sizes of the bedrooms, and anything else that can come out of a ULURP, right? And so essentially this is going to be put on you through this process if it continues to go in the way that it goes. And so you know, I'm really looking forward to the fight that you guys have for our community because, you know, the needs are significant, and I understand the minimums. And, you know, when we talk about MIH or 48 5X or whatever the heck it is, you know, these are usually intended to be minimums, but developers tend to lean on this as a checked box. And it is very difficult for us to accept that because in this community, we know that the needs are much higher than that. And it just really doesn't, you know, respond to the needs of the community. So you know, I'm on the community side on this one in the terms of get as much as you can for this parcel of land. In terms of affordability, the bigger units, and I understand, and we've talked about this when you presented to me before, it's just something that I've continuously heard from the community to ensure that community members can stay here and build a family here and not have people just cycling through our neighborhoods in these studios and one bedrooms, which is often what happens in those cases. So you know, we're a community. We live here for long periods of time. So, and build families here. So I'm on the same page as them. I'm hoping that we can get as much as we can get. But what EDC saying is true in terms of how long this wait list is for HPD financing. And while 5 years from today forward may not seem like a lot when we're talking about development, we have been waiting on this parcel of land for quite some time. And we are in an affordability crisis, which I do believe building more really helps. So, you know, it is one of those situations where, you know, we really do want to build here. I want it to go as quickly as possible. I just want to make sure we push for everything that we can get out of this because it's really on you guys now to do that for us.
Yeah, guys.
Thank you.
Hear that? Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions or comments? Angel?
So I want to thank you guys for coming, and just as a reminder for those at the table and also those at the table that might not have been here all this time and those online, we have had many updates on the POA over the years, right? I'm 100 years old. I've had 80 years of updates on this POA. And we've gotten them because we've kept seeking them. Here's a problem with my comments. We've kept seeking them, and fortunately, we've had, you know, a good contact at EDC that, you know, Lauren, that has come regularly, and also the folks, you know, with, you know, Stephen Hayes and the group that he represents, you know, on the development side. So that's great. It's been a while, and the project has been waiting to be fulfilled for entirely too long, generation or whatever. So I think it's good that, you know, I think it's good that this RFP would deliver this building faster. I know that you know, we're so accustomed to being skeptical of stuff because we just get, you know, the runaround so often. But I think in this case, it's a good idea. I think it's a good thing. I will echo what has been said before and what the council member just said in terms of the family size units for this building. Prioritizing that, I think, should be like emphasized and in bold in that RFP. We get tons of single units, tons of studios. Like, you know, I could show you the last, you know, dozen and change projects that we've seen. that come to the board, and it's always the same argument. You know, oh, everybody's asking for this on Housing Connect and blah, blah, blah. It's fine, we've gotten it, because everybody's asked, we've gotten it. So I think that box has been checked. So if we have an opportunity here and in the remainder to, you know, to get those family size units of people are staying here, like Elsie was saying, I think that's to our benefit, like this whole transient thing, people coming in for a second, leaving. I think we're better off with people coming in and staying and becoming a, you know, part of the fabric of the community, and also not giving an opportunity to people that are already here to be here. So just, you know, adding my 2 cents to that chorus of let's get the family size units and let's continue these updates on the POA and the local investment fund. Just keep in mind for when they return to give us more details on that, like there's pieces of this project that have to contribute to that local investment fund, right? So the challenge is, depending on what, you know, what the pieces are, how much they can and cannot contribute. Like the goal from 7 million years ago was a certain number. Maybe that's achievable, maybe it isn't achievable, maybe it's surpassable, but it's something that we have to understand, that there are factors in play that contribute to achieving that goal. It isn't just they're avoiding giving it to us. So far, that project has only delivered one small building on the sea and then one east, and the rest of it is waiting, right? You know, it's either vacant or it's about to start construction. So the places where we would be getting the contributions from are still to be realized. So it's something for us to keep in mind as we're remaining, you know, respectfully skeptical until it's actually delivered.
Thank you. I think this was a very key portion of the meeting, and I thank you for attending. I'm gonna just recap some points that probably weren't discussed. We talked about workforce development, we talked about accountability, and again, this isn't just the EDC. This conception is to all the developers that we've been correlating with in the last 6 months. The committee's focus this year, so you can just be aware, is particularly the planning portion of our district. And what we've learned through our experience is when we're reactionary, we don't get to be a part of these RFP processes to properly advise, in this case, our CBO EDC, so that way we can be a part of the process. Which brings me to my next topic, or my question is, does EDC have a CAB for our district? A community advisory board?
So.
And it's okay if we don't, but it's something to think about, right? We're gonna ask the same of HPD, we're gonna ask the same of DCP, we have it with MTA. And it allows us to designate a representative from our board to be a part of these processes and assistance, more of an advisor, to let the volunteer advisor, obviously, because you're paid, we're not. So that member can probably bring some of these concerns into fruition prior to these discussions, if that makes sense, especially since EDC seems to have multiple projects, which we're going to be asking some updates for, such as like the African burial ground. It's a great project as an example. We've been told for years about what's going to happen, and we never kind of really understand the targets. The last time we had discussions about that project, there was this whole schedule drafted. We were supposed to get updates. It just never came to fruition, right? And that's a concern of ours, for us to be more proactive on the design and development end, with coordinating between the board, EDC, and some of our other constituents. So I would ask you to look into a cabinet or a possibility so we could be involved in the RFP processes if there's any other projects coming out. Because what ends up happening is we get, like the question I asked you for, is the POA going to be a part of the contract? That's not something necessarily I expect EDC Global to be concerned about, right? But it's a concern for us in our district. MWD, SDVOB goals, you talked about on the workforce development and the 420X. We're aware of it. Another benefit that I've seen with the districts and trade-offs for these projects is obviously find economic opportunity. We have an economic development board that crafts all local businesses that we have within the district that may not necessarily check the box for HPD, but does for DOP, right? So then they can perform on the project. That's something that I'm gonna ask as well for EDC. EDC's been good with it. I haven't heard, bad rap about it, but I would ask, as opposed to just looking for a citywide MWB, citywide SDVOB, let's try to put a little bit more effort to the local initiative. I think it'd be great on the checkbox for you, for your marketing and budgeting in the future. And you say your RFP is coming out in May 2025. That doesn't leave too much time for us to bring up some concerns. So I'm gonna ask the committee if there's any questions, concerns, viable to the project that's gonna come into fruition, send it to me in writing. We will send it to our, to the office, to the DM and the chair, vet it. We'll get it out to EDC. Just some points that you probably already heard here today. The biggest tickets that we're talking about is, more units for family, jobs, affordable jobs. A lot of us are advocates for construction, so we tend to know what happens. And yeah, $40 an hour sounds great, but not when you're a plumber or an electrician that spent $50,000 to get your job, as an example, right? So we would ask that be looked into as well, and contracts and the cap. I think that covers most of it. Does anybody else have anything else? Excellent. Thank you for attending.
Thank
Thank you, guys.
Lauren?
Excellent. So now we get to go to our next day. Which the budget request submission form is there, if you guys would like to look at it. I know our chair of statement and district feeds has been very open and expressing it. You fill it out, I get a prong, the office gets a prong. It's a great tool for you to put in a budget request. But some of the conversations we're having here now is like being proactive. And what I've learned in being the SDN chair in the past is we tend to be reactive. We've gotten better with that. So I think that, this is another exemplary tool that one of our board members came up with, and we should be in full support. As anybody knows, when I was SDN chair, you can make your request, but please back it up. Please back it up. Don't tell me there's a crack in the sidewalk in Harlem. Take a picture, give me the address. That's just an example. I'm not from public safety, but you get the conception, right? Which brings me to the zombie warehousing argument that we've been having with HPD. But again, here we are in April, and I have received nothing. So I'm emphasizing that point because when we make outcries, we need to substantiate our complaints. It's in our interest. You heard it here today. I have no issue we had this conversation a month or two ago about being more efficient in our planning. We brought in EDC. Next month, DCP is coming. Following month, HPD is coming. And as much as we want them to be prepared when they come, so do we. So do you. So do me. And I need to be, as Nilsa said, educated with our homework so that way we can make some logical requests, right? We can definitely have meetings where we're just, for lack of a better word, having complaint sessions and bashing the agency, or we could go back to our meeting minutes that you all approved, right? And thank you, Derek, for making that point in the minutes. And be non-adversarial, right? And be a little bit more diplomatic and democratic in our efforts. Because the reality is, they came here, they're notifying us, they're telling us where they're at, they're telling us where they're going, and we just seem to, and this is just my personal opinion, we seem to be a part of the ride, which is awesome. I would like to get ahead of the process and start driving the car. And that's what we're talking about with planning, right? So as much as we want to compound on these agencies, do remember, a month ago, we had no updates. As of today, we got an update and some more. Some others are coming forth. ECF is coming down the pipeline soon. So I would like us to be a little bit more proactive in our efforts. You all have my phone number. We can reach out. We can have conversations outside this meeting just to prep so that way we're ready for it, right? The last thing I want to do is bring up something or a point and, for lack of a better word, my information's outdated. So I thought to just rant on that concept with planning for us, so then that way we can further look at it for the future. Which brings me to the last piece. I received some properties from Beverly Pavon, one of our members. She's notified me. I'll send it to you, Derek, so we can incorporate it in the minutes. Again, the recommendations for locations for the displacements of these schools. there seems to be a plan, there's gonna be a further discussion, and I necessarily don't have all the details. I will allow ECF to come and present on that topic. But do understand that the work is being done. I would just like us to kind of be more proactive on our work, if that makes sense. So. That takes care of my own business for planning. Is there any other discussions on that? Questions, comments? Would you like to tell us about your event?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I missed announcements. Oh, I'm not ready.
It's okay. Sorry.
God. Here it is. All right, so we have an event, well, I'm involved in a lot of things, as you all know. One of them is called Planners Network. It's a progressive planning organization. They're partnering with another organization.
Pratt.
Pratt?
Pratt.
No, wrong. Angels are one of our esteemed speakers at this event, so
Excellent.
something to look forward to. It is endorsed by the Collective for Community, Culture, and the Environment. I would not have gotten that. But it's basically the Planners Network celebrated 50 years this year. There's an event in January about comprehensive planning. This is a follow-up event. It's called What's Next? Grassroots Planning, the Foundation of Comprehensive Planning. It's going to be on April 15th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Goddard Riverside, 593 Columbus Avenue. And then there's an RSVP link. So if you're interested in attending, let me know. I'll share this with everyone. But it's a, how do we ensure that everyday residents like ourselves get the most, including the most marginalized, like our neighborhood, to have a voice in the planning process. We'll hear from representatives of organizations working to promote the nexus of grassroots and comprehensive planning. It'll explore perspectives from community boards, grassroots coalitions, community planners, and community-based organizations. And there are 5 excellent speakers and a moderator. Like I said, Angels graciously agreed to speak, and I know that we have been talking as a community board, and especially on this community about, or on this committee about, the neighborhood plan, and like one of the most important roles of a community board is being able to define what it is we want from a land use and perspective, and what the challenges are around all of that. It's an extremely rigorous effort and takes a lot of time. And then, as our advisory capacity as a community board, it could not be adopted, right? So there's, a lot of challenges and, but a lot of hopes, I guess. Anything on to add, Angel?
No, you have to show up to hear my comments. I just realized I set myself up.
Please, let's, as many members I do request, if you can. Leon, please be there.
It's just funny because the last thing I went to was a whole bunch of like developers and planners, and I'm to the left of them, and I'm showing up to this thing. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna come off like to the right of those people. I got like my professors, one of the organizers. I'm like, oh man,
this is great.
Yeah, at the last event, Angel had them shaking in their food. He told them, "Oh, you got yelled at a community board meeting. Grow up."
It sounds informative, and
What's the date and time on it?
It's the 15th.
6 to 8.
The 15th of this month?
Yes.
Yes, so this is next week, Wednesday.
1 week from. Oh my God. Okay.
Yes, unfortunately, I'll be out of town, but if there's a remote option, I would love possibly. If not, whoever else can attend, please report back if you can. We'll definitely have our DM and Miss Elliott there, so I would love for us to try to be there.
Okay.
And again, it gives you some substance, so then that way that talks to the homework part, right? You're getting informed, and it makes it a little bit more advantageous when you come here to possibly provide some insight, and more importantly, some options and tools. Kind of like how I reached with EDC today about the cab, as an example, right? And that doesn't mean that they have to or they didn't. It's a question, right? And the only reason I'm familiar with that is from other community planning engagements that I've seen. Example given, DDC, the Department of Design and Construction. the moment they go into a district, and I've only experienced this because of the jails program, the moment they go into a district, they set everything up. When I mean everything up, just like what we experienced with MTA. The moment they come into the district, they set up the community advisory committee. EDC, in this case, EDC is showing up monthly to those meetings. And it just, again, not only do they get the updates on the projects, but more importantly, you have the opportunity to plan, right? That's our focus for 2026, right? Is to be planning and get to a point where we can focus back on developing and or defining a CBA or just a bullets list. If any of you look at our presentation form that we send to developers when they come to present, there's a slew of questions there. And most of the time, I would argue it's a commitment, it's a binding, they're putting it in writing. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I would say that they're committing to certain things. And if we can, even if that's the format, like we said last month, we don't have a specific road that we're traveling, but the option is, again, to substantiate something prior at least to, the end of my chairmanship if possible. So I don't have anything else on that. Anything else? All right, excellent. So that takes care of old business, any new business?
I just wanted to comment on the budget request submission form. Yesterday at the housing committee, we was, exploring ways to also bring out and engage the community. So just like I was saying at the housing committee, we could do the same, well, I wanna have those forms for this month's meeting at the, Johnson's Resident Association meeting, so we could give it to the residents and get their feedback, and then, figure out a way that in a paper form, so that, those that don't use papers, the internet, at least we can bring that and bring it to the chair, do the same for this committee, and compile them until you get a whole handful of community input. And I like to have some also at my office, so like that, as I get clients coming in every day, we could just give it to them as part of the client intake form, and or follow up when they come in. And I think that would be a way of us engaging the people and getting their community input at the same time as they walk in and out the place. So I just wanted to mention that.
Sounds good. Thank you, Tammy. All right, seeing no other hands and or comments, we'll take roll call and then we'll adjourn the meeting.
Jessica Elliott. Nelson Rama. Beverly Pomona is excused. Derek Stampone.
Present.
Benny Torres.
Present.
Jessica Villanueva.
Present.
Candy Vivas Vasquez.
Present.
Nye Whitaker.
Present.
And Warren.
Excellent. Meeting is adjourned at 7:41 PM. Thank you for your attendance.